Tut's mother, the younger lady. She's been laid to rest here, back in Cairo, in the treasure trove that is the Egyptian Museum. Here, just a few feet away, are the remains of Akhenaten, Tut's father. When Albert compared his genetic profile with that of the younger lady's, he discovered something shocking. In a 21st century museum and a 3,500-year-old tomb, Egyptologists are piecing together the supernatural story of Tutankhamun's life after death. Of a pharaoh on a mission through the underworld, fighting against the forces of darkness to save the sun and the earth from annihilation. With the highest possible stakes, the people who packed Tutankhamun's tomb did everything in their power to ensure he was prepared for the mission ahead.
The ancient Egyptians were very big on insurance, so they had lots of safety nets in case one thing didn't work, one spell didn't work, there was a backup spell. If this got destroyed, there was another backup object. So you always had things that would help you get to where you wanted to.
Egyptologists now believe this is why Tutankhamun took 5,000 objects to the afterlife. The more he took, the more chance he had of defeating the demons and overcoming the obstacles that lay ahead. But one shocking find has always perplexed archaeologists: the mummified bodies of two baby girls. Today, their fragile remains are being conserved at the Grand Egyptian Museum. DNA analysis reveals these two tiny girls were most likely Tutankhamun's daughters. But tragically, both had been stillborn. One girl at around 4 months, and the other at nearly full term.
There was such a high mortality rate for infants and sort of stillborn children in the ancient world that it's not surprising. But it is extraordinary to have them carefully mummified, wrapped up, cocooned, put in these coffins and placed in their father's tomb.
These tiny mummies are an incredibly rare discovery. But Egyptologist Joyce Tilsley believes there is an explanation for their burial alongside the pharaoh. She suspects they were the ultimate insurance policy.
Tutankhamun was very wealthy. He could have dug a grave for his daughters anytime he wanted to. So the fact that their bodies have been saved to be buried with him suggests that perhaps it's not just a practical reason, but there's a ritual reason for them being there as well.
In ancient Egyptian art, women and girls were often cast as protectors, standing alongside their fathers or the gods. And for Joyce, they were more than simply good luck charms. They were active participants in Tutankhamun's journey through the underworld.
By being either physically in the boat with Tutankhamun or just having their spirits supporting him while he's in the boat, Tutankhamun will be protected by these two daughters who he has in the tomb with him.
Master stonecutter Fatih Ali Hamid works on a block of Tura limestone with the kind of techniques that were first used on this site over 4,000 years ago. So that the pyramid would have smooth sides, the outer face of each block was cut to a precise angle. Then it was polished, using a sandstone brick and fine sand as an abrasive. It's a process that takes time, skill, and a great deal of effort.
You can see how much of his body he's putting into this work, too. He's really putting absolutely all of his effort into it. ممكن أنا أزيد. Okay. يعني. لقى أنا مش شديد. Oh. Well, you know, I'm kind of proud of myself. I can already see many of the tool marks disappearing. Just, for example, right here, you can see these tool marks are almost already completely gone.
The aim is a finished product that is not merely smooth, but shining.
We can also see the difference between the unworked side with the incredible bright whiteness of the worked limestone.
The pyramids that we see today are obscured by smog, blackened by pollution.
This is what they actually would have looked like.
This level of workmanship, carried out by hand over the entire surface of the pyramid, would amount to millions of man-hours.
The exciting thing about studying pyramid building is that you learn both about the micro and the macro. Not only did it require incredible skill in these small environments, but also incredible administrative skill to be able to marshal the human energy and power of hundreds, if not thousands of people to build these objects, to bring the objects here, to work them and get them, and then put them up in place.
We can now form a picture of how the pyramid would have looked on the day it was completed. A perfect triangle of white, dominating the horizon and reflecting the powerful Egyptian sun with a dazzling glare.
It must have truly added to the impression of Giza as a magical port city bathed in sunlight, if not actually existing ethereally in the celestial light.
British Egyptologist Dr. Chris Naunton is on the trail of an ancient Egyptian mystery.
What I can see is a shaft, a deep shaft cut directly into the rock. It goes down about 20 meters, about 60 feet, and it leads to a network of tunnels. And these extend for about 100 meters, 300 feet, something like that. And in the walls of these tunnels, there are niches, kind of side chambers.
The discovery is known today as the Royal Cache. Among the mummies are 10 pharaohs, including some of the greatest names of ancient Egypt. But alongside legendary kings like Ramesses the Great and Seti I is a little-known pharaoh whose reign is shrouded in mystery. Sekenenre-Tao.
Sekenenre isn't as famous as some of his successors like Ramesses the Great or Seti I, but the fact that he was buried alongside those pharaohs suggests that for the ancient Egyptians, he was every bit a part of that line of great kings.
Who is this mystery pharaoh buried among the greats? The first clue, an inscription on the lid of his coffin. Sekenenre the Brave. Why the brave? Hidden inside the coffin was a mummy the likes of which had never been seen before.
When we look at the front of his face, it certainly doesn't look normal. It's very distorted. You may just be able to see the ends of the nose there, but the whole of the nose, the eye on the right, the bridge of the nose, the eye on the left are all very distorted.
Sekenenre is unique. He's the only mummified pharaoh ever found with such violent injuries. Dr. Richard Shepard is a world-renowned forensic pathologist. His specialty? The investigation of suspicious deaths.
These are the two wounds to the right side of Sekenenre's head. This is a wound where actually a piece of the skull has been forced in. It's been smashed into his brain underneath this, producing this large crater-like effect. This wound has a slightly different appearance, partly because I think a bit of the bone has broken off, possibly as the weapon was removed. It's flipped a piece of the outer part of the skull off. But this too has actually cut through. It's punched into the skull.
A mutilated mummy with an heroic epitaph. Understanding how he died is the key to unlocking the secrets of his life. Dr. Shepard turns to the only full autopsy ever performed on the body. It was carried out 100 years ago by anatomist Elliot Smith. His conclusions? Seqenenre died from axe wounds received in battle. Dr. Shepard is taking a closer look at Smith's report.
Elliot Smith says axe in his report, and I'd back it up forensically from our knowledge now. When I look at these two injuries, what I can say is that they are both lethal wounds, and you'd probably only need one of them to cause death, but the two together are a certain cause of death.
The experts agree on the cause of death. Fatal axe blows to the head. But did he receive these wounds on the battlefield? And if so, why risk a pharaoh's life on the front line?
For almost a century, Tutankhamun's dazzling treasures displayed in the Cairo Museum have told the story of the boy king's short life. But now, as all of his 5,000 treasures are being brought together at the new Grand Egyptian Museum, another far stranger tale is emerging. Not of Tutankhamun's life, but of his supernatural experiences after death.
The ancient Egyptians weren't obsessed with death. They were obsessed with living, and they wanted to live the best life they could, and they wanted that to continue if they could after death.
Egyptologists believe this is why Tutankhamun's tomb was crammed full of everything from golden statues to simple loincloths. His tomb was a colossal supernatural suitcase, packed with everything he'd need to help him navigate the afterlife and live there forever. But what did Tutankhamun expect to find when or if he got there? For Egyptologist Salima Ikram, the answer lies in some of the smallest items discovered in his tomb.
You needed to eat in the afterlife, and Tutankhamun was a teenage boy, so clearly he wanted to be well supplied. And so he had bread, he had wine, he had pomegranates, little green onions, and garlic. So he could flavor his food or munch on the green onion. And there are dates. There are piles of dates here. But what's really amazing about Tutankhamun's dates is that they were pitted, so he wouldn't have to chew around and throw out the pit. So these are really posh dates for the afterlife.
And these were just the appetizers. For the entree, Tutankhamun could choose from an all-you-can-eat buffet of Egypt's finest meats.
He had ribs, he had large joints of meat coming from the foreleg of cattle. And there are all these boxes of mummified poultry. Often the containers are made in the shape of what they are supposed to contain.
It was a feast fit for a pharaoh, pre-cooked, pre-packed, and preserved for eternity.
What is the real story of Tut's tomb? And can new clues help reveal its ultimate secrets? In a quest to find answers, Chris Naunton has traveled to the Valley of the Kings, where Carter made his original spectacular discovery. Inside the tomb, he notes something striking about the design.
So one of the first things you notice when you enter this tomb, you come down the descending passageway and you need to take a right turn. And this is quite unusual for 18th dynasty tombs, because in most cases what you would expect of a pharaoh's tomb would be a left-hand turn.
In ancient Egypt, the left was a symbol of masculinity. It was so important that the entrance to every king's tomb from Tut's dynasty involves an immediate turn to the left. The only other right-hand turn is in the tomb of Hatshepsut, a female pharaoh.
So the question then is If, in the case of the tomb of Hatshepsut, a right turn means the tomb of a female pharaoh, should we be expecting here not the burial of a male king, Tutankhamun, but a female pharaoh instead?
It appears King Tut's tomb was probably built not for a man, but for a woman. The female clues do not end there. Dr. Yasmin El-Shazli sees something intriguing about them.
If you look carefully at the faces on the stoppers of these canopic jars,
you'll notice that the portrait is quite different from that of Tutankhamun.
They look more feminine.
Experts agree that the heads on Tut's canopic jars have features that are more like a woman than a man. And remarkably, experts are even finding female features on the most famous piece of Tut's treasure: his death mask. Normally, a king's mask would all be made out of the same materials. But Tut's mask is different. El-Shazli reveals why.
The face is originally separate from the headdress, and they were welded together. So there are two different pieces.
There is a further clue on the ears of the mask's headdress.
The earlobes are very interesting because the ears were originally perforated.
In three-dimensional art, men did not normally represent themselves with perforated ears. It suggests that the face itself did not originally belong to the rest of the headdress, and that the headdress belonged to a woman.
The pierced ears indicate that Tut's iconic headdress may originally have been made for a woman, as were many other objects in Tut's tomb. The enduring question has been, who was she? While most Egyptologists will agree that this is a 3,000-year-old piece of propaganda, there are dissenting voices. Serious doubts are beginning to emerge about the manner of the bust's discovery. There are those who would go even further in questioning not only the manner of the discovery, but whether it is in fact ancient at all. One man believes that the Nefertiti bust is a 20th century fake.
If you look at the bust, you can see a beautiful Edwardian lady done up in Egyptian makeup.
Sean Greenhalgh knows fakery. In 2007, he sold this Armana statue to a UK museum for a six-figure sum. What he didn't reveal was that he'd made it himself. Greenhalgh is a convicted forger. His work has fooled experts all around the world. He sees the hand of a faker all over the Nefertiti bust.
It's supposed to be the work of a master sculptor, but the technique says otherwise.
For Greenhalgh, what gives the game away is the layer of stucco plaster that covers the limestone core and forms the bust's most intricate features.
That's the work of, if not an amateur, then a second or third rate sculptor. And none of those would work for the Pharaoh. He'd only have the best. That'd be like finding a Michelangelo sculpture in marble, and then you'd find out that the ears, the eyes, all the hands, the difficult parts are all made in stucco and added on. It just wouldn't be done.
And there is another inconsistency: Nefertiti's missing eye. The left socket is empty, while the right eye is made from an inlay of black wax and rock crystal. Greenhalgh believes that the right eye is genuinely ancient, sourced to make the bust look real.
It's a major point to its fakery because it's the kind of thing I've done myself, sourcing beads or pearls or whatever for in a piece.
Borchardt searched the area where the bust was discovered, offering a cash reward to anyone who could find the missing eye. It never was found. Greenhalgh believes it never existed.
It would be possible to source a quartzite eye, but to find a pair, well, that'd be very long odds.
Greenhalgh argues this is the only way to explain the empty socket. To ancient Egyptians, the eyes were a window to the soul. So representing the queen with one eye missing would be a shocking sign of disrespect. Finally, Greenhalgh thinks he knows why the forger picked Nefertiti and the Amarna period.
If you're going to pick a period of Egyptian art to fake, the Amarna period is really the best, because the sculpture wasn't any more difficult than any other period, but it is the most valuable today to collectors, and the rarest because it lasted such a short period of time. The damage on it is the major point of it being a later copy. It's something I've done myself, something I've seen on other fakes. It's quite obvious if you look at where it's damaged. The ears are damaged, so obviously it's been dropped left and right sides. The back of the head has been damaged, and most telling, the cobra on the conical cap is almost obliterated. To remove it, it would have taken off the nose, the brow ridges, and the chin. There's absolutely no damage to the face. The damage is selective, and that's a dead ringer for a fake.
When the discovery of the Nefertiti bust was announced to the world, it revived the memory of a queen, all but forgotten for 3,000 years. To understand who she really was and why the bust was made, we first need to understand the role that Nefertiti played in the turbulent reign of her husband, the pharaoh Akhenaten.
When Akhenaten came to power, he started making some fairly radical changes. Egyptian religion had always been strongly polytheistic, so many different gods were worshipped.
Akhenaten decided to deny the existence of those gods. His people would worship just one god, through him. That would be the light of the sun. He called it the Aten.
Akhenaten seems to have had a moment of truth, of seeing that all of these other forms of divinity that people so liked really had no substance. There's nothing you can see except what is man-made. The only form of power that you can't really understand is the sun, and it's there, you can see it, and that's all that matters.
So though he's a king, Akhenaten is a revolutionary. His changes send a shockwave through Egypt.
To the ancient Egyptians, simply to say that there was one god and none of the others existed would have profoundly affected the understanding that Egyptians had of their whole environment and their whole cosmos.
And when all this happened, Nefertiti played a central part. This is a tomb carved into one of the cliffs outside Amarna.
This is a beautiful image here of Akhenaten and Nefertiti in a chariot being pulled by a galloping horse. They're both under the rays of the Aten, and they're the only ones who are receiving the Aten's blessings. Traditional Egyptian religion had functioned by pairing a male god with a female goddess, who in turn create an offspring. And that engendering ensures the recreation of the world every day.
Now, with those gods abolished, Akhenaten and Nefertiti took their roles for themselves. They would be the only link between the life-giving sun god and the world of the living.
So he was the male god of creation, and she is the female goddess of creation. And by coming together, as this image represents, enforce the recreation of the universe.
In Cairo, Egyptologist Dr. Yasmin El-Shazli is investigating the mystery of a newly discovered pyramid. Fragments of wood found in the burial chamber have been pieced together. They form a coffin lid with a beautifully carved face.
Coffins normally had features that were similar to the owner, but idealized, because that's what they would look like for eternity.
The restoration has revealed something astonishing. This isn't a king. It is, in fact, a mystery woman.
She's wearing the Hathor wig that was very popular during the Middle Kingdom and was only worn by women.
The answer may lie with another object found in her grave. A chest, decorated with hieroglyphs. Could they reveal the mystery woman's name?
What's extremely important about this chest is that we know that it belonged to a princess, because here it says Satnisu, daughter of the king, and then it would be followed by the name. The name is the most damaged area, which is very frustrating. The ancient Egyptians believed that the worst thing you could possibly do to anyone was erase their name. If we managed to find her name and say it again, then she would achieve immortality.
It's not just her name that's a mystery. Discovering a princess in a pyramid is highly unusual.
This kind of pyramid design is specific to a king. It's not what you'd expect a junior member of the royal family to be in. Normally, a princess would simply have a shaft tomb in a chamber at the bottom of it, which makes the whole thing a real mystery.
To understand more about the princess, the team must investigate the age she lived in. Egypt's Middle Kingdom. These models from the time give us a window into her world. Stretching from 2030 to 1650 BC, it's known as Egypt's Classical Age. It produced the first historical novel called The Story of Sinuhe. And new techniques of working with gold to create the finest jewelry of the ancient world. Locked in Cairo Museum are the treasures of another Middle Kingdom princess.
We have here the crown of Princess Akhenaten from Dahshur. It's made out of gold and inlaid with semi-precious stones. And here at the front, you have a branch with very, very intricate leaves and flowers. This necklace is very delicate and very intricately decorated. This, for example, is the symbol of life, the Ankh. And this is a very famous amulet as well. It's the Eye of Horus that helps protect the wearer. The newly discovered tomb probably contained material very similar to this. A lot of gold, which is probably why it would have been robbed a long time ago.
Ordinarily, there was a very clearly articulated process for burying the king and making sure that everything was perfect.
It appears that this was not the case for Tut.
One of the interesting features of these walls and the paintings is these strange sort of spotty marks. These black patches that you see all around the walls are in fact organic. They are mold.
This mold appears nowhere else in the Valley of the Kings. At first, conservation experts worried that in this otherwise dry environment, the mold was being caused by the breath and sweat of countless tourists. But a study of Howard Carter's original photographs revealed that this could not be the case. And it gives experts an insight into events over 3,000 years ago, to the precise time of young Tut's burial. It seems that his tomb was sealed before the paint on the walls had dried.
The supposition is that the walls had some residual humidity from the painting that was still there when the tomb was sealed.
In this case, if the paint was still wet, you very much have this sense that everything was done as quickly as possible.
Conservation expert Adam Lowe and his team recently took high-resolution photographs of the burial chamber's paintings. At a resolution of up to 100 microns, they reveal details as small as the tip of a human hair, including the individual brushstrokes of ancient craftsmen. Seen close up, the brushstrokes do seem to have been painted in a hurry.
You can see here there are clearly traces of brush marks that are clearly done like this. So they're not done like this. The application of the ochre color is done very fast with bigger brushes. I mean, that's a very fast mark. That's a... my estimate is that it wouldn't have taken a team of skilled painters much over a week to paint Tutankhamun's tomb.
Painting a king's tomb normally took years of work. So why was Tut's tomb prepared in such a rush? Egyptian kings normally had their tombs built and decorated long before they died. But Tut's mummy reveals he died unexpectedly, around the age of just 19. According to ancient tradition, only 70 days can elapse between the moment of the king's death and the sealing of his tomb.
Dr. Hutan Ashrafian is a leading surgeon. He specializes in cold cases from the ancient past. By carefully studying the family, Dr. Ashrafian's noticed distinct medical patterns that together could explain what killed King Tut.
The family are very interesting in that they all died relatively young. We know that Akhenaten died early. We know that Tutankhamun, his son, died early. We know that the great-grandfather died relatively early. They died at a sequentially younger age.
There's another familial pattern hidden here in plain sight.
So this is Tut's dad, we think.
So this is the statue of Akhenaten. Let's have a look at him. And, you know, clearly this is not a male form.
It does look very feminine, wider hips.
This is meant to be a pharaoh, but he doesn't look like a normal man.
Several generations show the same body shape. And a recent analysis of Tut's loincloths found in his tomb reveal that his hips were also abnormally wide. Dr. Ashrafian believes some of King Tut's family suffered from gynecomastia, causing men to develop feminine features such as breasts and rounded hips. Our search for a genetic culprit is narrowing. Tut's mother, the younger lady, she's been laid to rest here, back in Cairo, in the treasure trove that is the Egyptian Museum. Here, just a few feet away, are the remains of Akhenaten, Tut's father. When Albert compared his genetic profile with that of the younger lady's, he discovered something shocking.
It's not only that this is the father and this is the mother of King Tut. It turned out that they are brother and sister, which was a big surprise for us.
So Tut's mother and father, so their mother and father, they were also brother and sister. So Tut was a product of incest.
A lot of incest happened. They didn't like to get royal and non-royal blood mixed, so they tried to keep it within the royal family.
So it's official. Comprehensive genetic profiling has proved that Tut's parents were brother and sister. Tutankhamun was born out of incest.
Dashur. 15 miles south of Cairo, it's one of Egypt's most mysterious royal graveyards. Today, only a handful of pyramids survive. But the remains of many more lie hidden beneath the desert sands. Egyptologist Dr. Chris Naunton has spent his career hunting for these lost tombs. He has come to Dashur, where Egyptian archaeologists have made a thrilling discovery.
This is a pretty exciting moment. We're in it's an amazing kind of lunar landscape. This is the bent pyramid just slightly closer to us and what's known as the red pyramid behind it. But we're going to a much less well-known part of the site where something very intriguing, to say the least, has been uncovered just very recently.
This crater was the site of a large quarry, until workers stumbled upon blocks of finely cut limestone buried deep in the sand. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities began to excavate. Excavations have revealed a passage that once led from the entrance to deep under the pyramid. The stairs lead to an underground complex, the heart of the pyramid. These huge blocks are protecting the only access to the chamber and any mummy and treasure that may be hidden inside. And unlike any other pyramid found so far, it still appears to be sealed. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquity has granted permission to raise the capstone to reveal what lies within. Finally, after 3 days of effort, the tomb gives up its secrets for the first time in almost 4,000 years. But what's inside is a shock.
Oh, goodness me.
Its contents are in disarray. The archaeologists hope to be unveiling treasure. But now, there's a mystery to solve.
There are two questions here that we need to start trying to answer. One is, who was buried here? Who was this pyramid built for? And then secondly, how is it that an apparently completely sealed, unbreached burial chamber comes to have been disturbed?
It's becoming clear they've stumbled upon an ancient crime scene. Someone got here first and robbed the burial chamber.